Hello and welcome to episode 8 of VetPhysioLife. I'm Shane Jasani and I'm joined as always by Kim Sheila. Hi Kim.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you, yeah.
Excellent. And Kim, I think we need to share with the listeners where you are having this call from because it's just too cool not to.
I'm currently in a corner of Edinburgh Airport having this call with you just before I go off and have a fun 4 days at Edinburgh Festival, so yeah.
So look, fantastic, and thanks as always for fitting this in. And also, if there's any random overhead announcements, then that's why the listeners will know what that's all about.
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. Cool. So I thought we'd start just by catching up on the cases that you saw yesterday, if that's okay.
Yeah. So I had a new patient, which was a fabulous, lovely old boy who is a Labrador-Springer Spaniel cross of a very stately 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
I know. I was very, very impressed with him, and he was absolutely lovely. So the usual stuff. He's struggling on his back legs especially, and just wanting his owners, his carers, wanting to make him as comfortable and improve his quality of life for as much as possible. He still goes on a little toddle around the block, and he loves his food still, so he's still a happy boy. So yeah, we did thought his owners had to do some massage, and we did some very, very basic low-grade strengthening exercises, which, as I said to them, may not make a lot of difference, but there's still some potential that they could help him maintain some muscle mass and be a bit stronger and help him be a bit more active. So we'll give it a shot, basically.
And was he having any stuff done before you saw him yesterday? Was this his kind of first foray into physical therapy?
No, this is entirely his first foray into physio or anything of that sort. His carers have taken him to see the vet recently, and she sort of said, given him some painkillers and just she thought some lumbosacral disease, some low back pain, and suggested that physio might be a good idea as well. So yeah, we're just going to give it a go and see. He certainly enjoyed his massage. There was some snoring and there was a lot of farting. So I take that as a compliment, ironically, in my game, because it means that they're relaxing. So it's all good.
Fantastic. We definitely need to spend some more time, not today, but on a future episode, talking about massage as well. And So he was pretty cool with you handling him and doing the things you needed to do.
I got a few side eyes and some "what are you doing" to start off with, but after a little while he kind of realised that the ouchie bits get less ouchy when she's doing this, and actually this is quite nice. And by the end of it, he was thoroughly enjoying himself, and there was a very happy face. So it's all good.
And so is he the kind of case that you will kind of see regularly, or have you left his carers with a bunch of things to do as well, or how will it work?
So with him, I've given them a bunch of things to do, and I'm going to go back and see him in 3 weeks to see how they're getting on, because I want, as much as possible, his carers really wanted to be involved in his care and in looking after him and doing as much for him as possible. So I did a lot of teaching of how to do the massage and advice and pacing techniques and various different sort of tips and strategies, etc. And then obviously 1 or 2 low-grade strengthening exercises, and then I'll go back in 3 weeks, which just gives them long enough to actually have got into a regular routine and a flow of how to do all of this, and will give them long enough to highlight any problems that they might be any areas they might be finding tricky or any problems they're having. And also the other thing with a really old gent like him, sometimes you need a large chunk of time in between sessions just to be able to see if there is any improvement, because the improvement's going to be so small that the carers, when they're there every single day, it's so incremental that they may not actually notice that the physio is making any difference. Whereas if I've I've not seen him for 3 weeks and I've got my knowledge of his baseline, then I quite possibly might come in and go, oh yeah, he's actually moving a bit better. That's brilliant. Hopefully, that's the aim anyway.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And the other thing I wanted to ask you was, with a case like this where you said, the vet has actually suggested that they might want to consider physiotherapy, what relationship would you now have with their primary care vet?
So I will, having done this assessment, I'll now send that vet a report on my findings and my plans for follow-up, and then I'll keep them involved on a regular basis. That vet will have my email and my phone number, so if they want to chat to me, they're more than welcome to in between times. Yeah. So obviously you can't push it too much because everyone's busy. I'm busy and they're busy, and we want to fit in with each other, but we need to have good open lines of communication as well. Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, cool. I'd really love to see a picture of this boy if you manage to get one, because 17-year-old Springer Spaniel cross is not a dog I think I've seen before, but there you go.
No, he's an impressive boy.
Yeah,
he's an impressive boy. And hearing tales of when he was younger, when he was able to jump over 5-foot backyard fences, is quite impressive. I was like, wow.
But this brings up a point that I think we talked about before in terms of quality of life, right? Because obviously he can't do things like that he used to do, but presumably, well, for sure, his carers feel that his quality of life is still, sufficiently good at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was actually one of the questions that they asked me, and they were worried that they were keeping him going for their sake rather than his sake. But when I met him on first impression, he was a very happy boy. He thoroughly enjoyed meeting new people and having a good old sniff. He was my last patient of the day, so I smelt of about 5 or 6 other dogs. And so he had a whale of a time having an investigation of everyone else I'd treated that day. And you rattle a treat bag and his ears are up and he's happy and he looks like a 4-year-old again. So in my book, that's not a dog with a poor quality of life.
Yeah.
So... that's fair.
Yeah, fantastic. And no, I was just going to ask you about the painkillers that the vets put him on. Is he having those on a daily basis, or is it kind of more sporadic? Or
yeah, so he's having what was it he was on? He was on just a couple of he was on a mild non-steroidal and a mild analgesic, which he's just having every morning. So, and I think in his case, that's kind of fair enough. By the time you get to 17 and you're a Labrador-sized dog, that's probably fair play, really.
Oh no, definitely, yeah. It'd be surprising if he didn't need some help, wouldn't it really be? Well, that's fantastic. I look forward to finding out how he's getting on. I guess just a brief rundown, because sounds like you saw a number of dogs yesterday, but just who were the rest of them?
So I saw my regular 3 German Shepherds who are doing all right. They're all managing quite well. And I had did my 6-weekly check with treatment with a little Sheltie that's got sort of a front shoulder neck kind of problem that sort of flares up every now and again. But currently, and for the last quite a long time actually, last fair few times I've seen him, is doing absolutely brilliantly. This was a dog that I might have mentioned before, I'm not entirely sure, but he was literally at the stage of, he was screaming with so much pain, and he was at the stage of being put to sleep because his carers couldn't cope and couldn't allow him to be in so much pain anymore. And through purely some muscle relaxants and physio, he's now going on holiday to Yorkshire next week, and the last time they did that, at the beginning of the year, he was doing 5-6 mile walks every single day, completely sound, with no lameness, and loving every second of it. So he's been a definite big success story of mine, and he's a lovely, lovely little boy, bless him.
Oh, fantastic. And how old is he again?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head I can't remember, but he is getting on. I have a feeling he is about 15 years old, but I could be plus or minus 2 years on either side. I can't remember
Oh,
at the
no,
moment.
that's cool. Fantastic. That sounds great as well. And so a bit of a day of some older patients.
Yeah, I had some older patients, and then I had a fair few older patients actually. But then I also had a bit of a younger one, who's a middle-aged one. He's about 6. A little terrier who's had an SCE in the past, and we had some fun with some proprioceptive exercises. So that was quite good fun. We did a few different things. So the wobble cushion stuff, and then a proprioceptive tract, which his owner has really brilliantly put together. So we had some fun going over that.
Fantastic. This is like a sort of, how can we explain that to the listeners, what a proprioceptive tract is?
So a proprioceptive tract is basically lots and lots of different surfaces and textures all put into one. So after I sort of discussed, told the owner the suggestion and what to do, sort of what it would entail, and she did a brilliant job. She's got a yoga mat, and then she's attached various different things to it. So she's got a bit of plastic astroturf that's quite coarse. She's got a big fluffy bath mat. She's got a wooden, quite slippery doormat. She's got she found something on Amazon that's like meant to be a shiatsu walking mat, which has just got these hard little plastic knobbles on, which is really quite painful. I can't see how any humans would want to be using it as anything to walk on, but it's great for my purposes with this dog. And then a few other bits. She's got about 5 or 6 different textures, and the whole point is that you have it's an uneven surface, and there's different textures, and they have to walk across and be able to adapt quite quickly from one texture to another, and because each different surface gives a different challenge to the dog. And proprioception is it's a sense. We don't just have the 5 senses that we're taught when we're little. We have a lot of other senses in actual fact. Proprioception is one of those, and it's basically joint sense. So the best way to sort of describe it is, if any of you close your eyes and then someone else picks up your hand and moves your hand, you'd still know exactly where in space your hand is. You wouldn't still think it was in your lap or wherever it was before it got moved. Some of these dogs with neurological spinal problems, they have reduced proprioception. So that just then means that they're not quite as aware of where their parts of their body are in space, usually their feet, because that's the bit that's furthest away from the spine, and it tends to be that the further away everything is from the bit that controls it, the easier it is to lose control of it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Proprioception, sort of like a dog with sort of reduced proprioception, it's sort of like how if you've sat in one place and you've got a dead leg, it's that feeling just before the pins and needles come back, and you're like, I know my leg's down there, but I don't really know where it is.
Yeah.
And they're sort of walking around on something similar to that a lot of the time. They kind of know where their foot is, but they sort of know where it is probably within about 6 or 10 inches rather than knowing pinpoint as we would do and as a normal dog would do. So these are the dogs that you see sometimes that rest on their knuckles on the top of their paw rather than standing on their pads as they should do. And the only real way, it's a sensory problem, the only real way we can work on that sensory problem is to try and overload the senses. So try and really stimulate the sensory nerves in an attempt to wake them back up again, in very layman's wishy-washy terms, but you'll get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
And try and improve that knowledge of where that joint is in space, basically. And a proprioceptive tract is one of those ways.
Fantastic. And I have to just say, so in essence, it's about trying to help them find their feet again.
Yes, very good.
Is that true?
Very good. Yes, it is entirely about helping them trying to find their feet again.
Excellent. All right, cool. Wicked. I wanted to just ask you quickly before I let you go and enjoy your long weekend, because I think it's agility season at the moment, and I wanted to just ask you on the spot. First question is, what are some of the common injuries that some agility dogs tend to get? And then, I don't know, maybe 3 quick tips on how people can try and prevent that from happening.
Oh, gosh. Thanks for that one.
I mean to, I know.
Yeah, so probably they're all agility dogs at some point in time are going to get some sort of minor soft tissue injuries. They're doing highly athletic activities at speed on varying different surfaces depending on where the competitions are. It only goes without saying that they're going to pull a muscle at some point in time. A lot of there are certain muscles that might be more at risk. So psoas is one of the hip flexors, so it's one of the muscles that helps the hip and the back leg come forwards. So it's a big muscle in both sprinting and in creating propulsion to jump over jumps. So that can get injured. To be honest, there is no way you can 100% say that that's never going to happen and you can prevent it entirely. However, a good warm-up is the best thing you can do. A good warm-up with some dynamic stretching to make sure that the dog is as ready as possible, the circulation is going, and the muscles are as primed as possible before you go into that arena to do your run is the best thing you can possibly do. The important thing being that the warm-up is done as close to, or is kept going, and the circulation is kept moving as close to literally walking into the arena as possible. So, do your warm-up, then you're in your queue to go into the arena, but you need to just still make sure that you're not having your dog sat by the side of you at that point in time. You're still keeping them moving, doing sit-to-stands, doing figure of eights around you, whatever, but keep them moving and keep that blood pumping. And not only is that better for their musculoskeletal systems, it's also much better for their heart, which is possibly something that doesn't get thought about particularly, but it is very important. And coming from human backgrounds of cardiac rehab and respiratory, that's a little bit of a soapbox for me anyway. So, yeah, you can only be doing. We don't know if you're doing your dog any harm, but we do know from the human research that going into exercise cold is not helpful for the cardiac muscle. So, and it's all it to a certain extent, the physiology and the biology is transferable. Cardiac muscle is cardiac muscle. So there is likely to be some transferability. So keep your dog warmed up. And you as an agility handler, because you need to keep yourself healthy too. So that's my other little soapbox. And then the other thing is just to be careful of carcasses, so wrist joints. Just not that you can do anything about that, but obviously they're landing on them when they're jumping, and when they're jumping off multiple things. It's not just going over jumps, it's the A-frames, it's even the weave poles. You've got a high impact going through the carcasses, the wrist joints of the front leg. So not necessarily to do anything while you're doing the agility, because there's not really a lot you can do to specifically. There's possibly a few strengthening exercises you could do with the forearm. So things like burying something under a blanket and trying to get them to pull it towards them. You're trying to get them to bend their wrist, basically, because that will strengthen the wrist flexors, which is the carpal flexors, which are the supporting muscle of that joint. But really just to be aware, and if you see any sagging, and if you notice that when your dog's walking around normally that there's a different angle to their front leg and their wrists on their front leg, then get it looked at sooner rather than later, rather than thinking, oh, that's just interesting, and not really doing anything about it.
Oh, fantastic. I always love these imaginative and creative solutions for the exercises, because things like, bearing stuff, and I mean, when you visualize that, you can see exactly why it would help the carpal joints. But yeah, very, very cool. All right, look, Kim, I'm gonna let you go because you've got a fun weekend, long weekend ahead of you. And so thanks a lot for your time, and we will speak again after the weekend.
My pleasure. It's great to talk to you again.
Okay, cool. Take care. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.